Coming up on the CHGO Cubs podcast, can you think of a Cubs loss that made you feel like that Bears bummer yesterday? Plus, where does Seiya Suzuki and Ian Happ rank in Major League Baseball at their position? Oh, yeah, KB got robbed, and Delmendo is back. CHGO Cubs podcast starts now. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast. It is Monday, November 18th, and it is the off season still. In fact, it's just beginning. It is? It's just beginning.
Oh, we're back.
Hi to everybody in the live YouTube chat. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, and Cody Delmendo has returned from Mexico.
Long extended vacation to Mexico.
My favorite part of my 2-week vacation in Mexico was the friends we made along the way and the Japanese food I ate along the way.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. Law on the draw, running the ones and twos for us again today on a happy Monday.
Trying to.
Well, that Bears game sucked, huh? We are going to talk about – we ended last week on the conversation with they don't have a superstar. And then Jeff Passan said, hey, the Cubs don't have a superstar. And we said, we know. We said that, Jeff Passan. Yeah. Over and over we keep saying it. And then, but our discussion on the show was, now wait a minute. We know they don't have a superstar. How close are they to at least having a top 5 player at their position, right? So, and I don't necessarily consider that a superstar. I consider that an all-star.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty much?
Yeah.
So we're going to try and go through some of the positions and see where do the Cubs rank. Are they average at each position? Are they... What rank would they give? We're going to start with the guys that I think would be the highest on the team, Seiya and Happ. We'll see where that goes, and we'll come up with some other names, see where they rank. Something bad happened to Kris Bryant. He's okay, but something bad happened. We'll talk about that. But before we ask the Bears question, I do want to ask Cody, what'd you do for 2 weeks? Where you been?
Legitimately?
Where you been, and what the heck did you do?
Legitimately or like for the bit?
However you prefer.
Okay, so for anyone who didn't understand the bit, I was never in Mexico.
What?
What? Don't let the facts get in the good way.
But don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
He was in Cabo.
I mean, if you follow me on the internet, I mean, it was pretty clear I wasn't in Mexico. But
what? Are you kidding me?
Anyway,
2-week staycation.
Yeah, 2-week staycation. Respectfully, and no offense, it was nice to not come here for 2 weeks. I did miss you guys.
I take offense to that.
But it was nice to not have to come
That's
in
the
here.
backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
I don't like being here, but I miss.
No, I like being here, but I hadn't taken any time. I legitimately I had to take the time off. Like I had like 200 hours of vacation time.
I feel like you look refreshed.
Yeah.
5 pounds lighter maybe even, right? Do you look?
People are saying, I don't know.
I feel like he looks where he's got like a twinkle in his eye.
I mean,
you see the dead zone in Ryan and I right now. It's just kind of.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like I did a lot of like resting, and I went and tried some places I hadn't been that I've heard a lot about. And yeah, I will say the weather was not nice to me during those 2 weeks. The weather sucked like the entire time.
It kind of
like the first 4 days of the staycation, it was gloomy and rainy and cold. But then the weekend came around and it was sunny. The sun was out. It was very nice fall days the first weekend. And last week, I feel like it was a little bit of a mixture, but yeah. So, I mean, it was good to just kind of, I'll just say this. It was nice to not have to be here to react to the Cubs not
doing anything,
not giving Juan Soto even a contract. Because if I would have been here when that news came out, there would have been more yelling than what Greg Braggs did yesterday on the Bears show. Okay. So
that was a lot.
You know, it is what it is on some of the things that I missed, but I don't know. I will also say I did get really bored at a lot of points too. And so I ended up in many ways kind of working on the staycation because like I told myself I wasn't going to think about the Cubs while I was gone. That's impossible. So, yeah.
Did you guys watch the Tyson fight?
I did.
No. I did.
Well, let me explain this to you.
Massive waste of time.
It was a total waste of time. Number one, fixed because he could have knocked Tyson out at the end if he wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
I believe. And he was like, he's doing the bowing stuff at the end. Two, everybody in the world now knows how I feel at 6 a.m. every morning. It's how Tyson was looking walking back to the corner each round. That's exactly how I look, just kind of like, huh. That's what 50 feels like right there. I thought he had a shot to win the fight because one guy's a YouTuber, but I forgot this guy's half his age.
Yeah,
almost 60 years old.
This guy's half his age. He's almost 60, and I thought to myself, turns out Mike Tyson's peeing 3 times a night too, sometimes 4. Even the greats have to get up and pee 3 times a night when they hit 50.
Father time is undefeated.
In his case, grandfather time.
What a boring fight that was, and the stream Netflix. We're not on Netflix.
The female fight, the female fight before that was so much more entertaining.
It was Frozen. Oh, yeah. For me, it was just Frozen.
I know people were talking about the Netflix freezing and all that. I didn't have that problem.
Oh. Okay, now hold on though.
Which is weird, but yeah.
Let's not put so much disrespect on Mike Tyson's name that James Colstock in the chat says, I could have knocked Tyson out.
Yeah, that's not.
Never thought I
don't know. Maybe he's,
I'm sorry,
maybe he's
James.
295.
I'm pretty sure that's not true. You being in our chat every day says to me that I don't think you're going to be knocking out Mike Tyson anytime soon.
Oh,
it was.
But good luck with that.
What a letdown.
Yeah.
And don't they have doesn't Netflix have do they have a Thanksgiving game coming up?
Christmas. Beyonce.
Christmas.
Go.
Oh, that's going to go well, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they better get their
their
stuff together. That's
going to be a disaster.
I'll say this: that they did exactly what reminded me of when Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fought, like way back when I was in college. Like the way they hyped it up and everything.
I believe.
Like it was a money grab. It was a money grab.
Oh, gee, shocking! Who would have ever thought that?
Tyson got
just
20
saying,
million
like,
to be tired.
Anyone who thought that was going to be entertaining, like you set yourself up for disappointment.
Well, one guy's not really a boxer in my mind, and the other guy is a boxing legend, but he's 60.
Yeah.
And
what are we doing?
Again, that reminded me. Well, I'm forgetful in my age. That reminded me it's okay. Everybody feels like that when they hit 50, even Mike Tyson.
And I said Pacquiao and Mayweather because when they finally fought, I think Pacquiao was past his prime at that point or something like that. They were both past their prime, whatever it was, It was so long ago because I was in college when it happened, but
Pacquiao was on
6 years ago or something.
Pacquiao was on a card when I worked in San Antonio, and he was a nobody, but he was on a card with a guy that was fighting from San Antonio. He was in the gym, and I watched him like train and stuff. I was like, well, that guy seems pretty fast. Turns out he was pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Who was that guy? Manny what?
Manny Pacquiao.
Like a year later, everybody knew who he was. The Bears game, obviously, total disaster for anybody that's a Bears fan.
Yeah.
Predictable. But can you think of a Cubs game this season or another season? Regular season game, and it's not apples to apples because you have 162 versus 17. But can you think of a regular season game that made you feel like that?
I think recent history, you'd probably put the Braves game when Seiya dropped the fly ball.
That's my first thought. Is Seiya
Atlanta. That's a pretty good comparison.
I mean, and it also
I was pretty dead.
It wasn't an arch rival. That's the only real difference.
But there was big pressure on the game because it was so late.
It was an important game.
Race. Yeah.
How about
it's not beating? It's not like a game against the Cardinals or whatever. But
to do a rival. How about this is like when the writing was on the wall that the Cubs were going to just sell everyone at the deadline in 21 when they led 7-0 against Milwaukee with Herrera. Washed Herrera on the mound. They blew the 7-0 lead and ended up losing like
14-7. It
was like 14-7 or something like that. That was just that was more than a punch in the gut. That was just like, yeah, we're selling everyone. Yeah, we really fumbled the bag on being a dynasty.
Soto and
sucks.
I'm depressed now. That was bad.
That one, and then like the year before. Well, I guess it was 2 years before because the COVID year was in the middle. But at the end of 2019, Craig Kimbrell, there was
Some of
part
the
of like a
Kimbrells.
9 or 10 game losing streak in September. It kept
Where this stopped being cool.
The Cubs had a lead.
The hanging arm stopped being cool.
They had an important series against the Cardinals, and I believe they got swept that series. And Craig Kimbrell, he blew a 9th inning lead in one of them, giving up a go-ahead homer to someone.
Like game-winning home runs in back-to-back games?
Something like that. And I think Darvish pitched a hell of a game in one of them, and the Cubs the offense was dead like it had been for a year and a half at that point. So
it's tough
those are
because
pretty
there's
brutal.
so many more games. Brant Brown is one, and for sure more recently the Seiya game. You knew it was over.
Yeah. If I could choose one from this year, man, there's so many of them.
Which of the 75 blown saves you want to choose?
I mean, it's pretty easy to throw out that 8-0, blowing the 8-0 lead against the Padres. It's not against a rival, but you had an 8-0 lead in April against the Padres that you blew and lost. I think in late August or early September this year, they had a 9th inning lead with our guy Porter Hodge on the mound. 2 outs in Colorado in the 9th inning. They were up by a run. Hodge ends up walking, 2-out walk, and then gives up a 2-run homer to walk it off for the Rockies. That was pretty brutal, and honestly, in a series that they had to at least win.
I think the Seiya game is. The Seiya drop fly ball game
is the closest thing.
Is the closest one I can think of because, like you
right
said,
now.
there's 162 regular season games. Like you'd have to have 10 heartbreaking losses to match up to one heartbreaking loss for the Bears, right? Just because of the amount of games. But
if you do playoffs, you can't. Bartman was more heartbreaking than that because you already lost 10 in a row.
John Lackey giving up the walk-off homer to Justin Turner in 2017 against the Dodgers. The wild card game against the Rockies in 2018. The game 163 against the Brewers in 2018. I mean, we're Cubs fans. All we know is pain, really. So
Cubs and Bears fans.
Yeah.
But
Chicago sports fans.
You missed it, Cody. I've said, hey, we have an angry live YouTube chat 5 days a week.
We do.
Let me tell you, they're the best team in town. As average as they are, they're the best thing we got going right now.
Well, you know what's
it's funny how the narrative changes with that because the moment they drafted Caleb Williams, everyone was like, "Oh, the Bears are back."
That's right, but they've now sunk back down below the Cubs.
You know what's one that may fit in for this season? Is it the Giants on like a Monday night that Neris gave up like a 3-run homer?
I was going to say one of the Neris blown saves might feel like that.
Like, that was in there for sure. Didn't they have like I don't remember the game, but
I was at one of the White Sox games that they almost blew, but the White Sox are that bad to where they didn't blow it. And that was the White Sox takeover against the Cubs on the South Side. I was there, and I was like, if I am here to watch this in person, I'm never forgiving Jake for making me come to this game.
That's how Packers fans feel like Cubs fans facing the White Sox. Only a bad thing can happen, then they get done like, we knew they'd take care of themselves. Yeah. Chef Kevin says Leon Durham ball between the legs in the NLCS in '84. Yeah, but again, that's a postseason game. But I hear what you're saying. It did feel the same in the heart. It was a dagger.
Another perhaps playoff game that we haven't mentioned. 2007 NLDS against the Diamondbacks when Lou Piniella pulled Carlos Zambrano because he wanted him to be more rested for a game down the road or whatever, and they end up getting swept in the series, so he never even pitched again in the series again. I remember that game being very brutal because the Cubs had every chance to win that game.
I feel like we could do
James Loney the next year against the Dodgers.
We probably
we
could easily do it especially if we took one person from each podcast, or if we all sat up here. We could do 3 hours of miserable Chicago sports losses.
It's like
and just reflect with the fans.
It's like all those videos you might see online where people are like, name that random athlete. And people just start naming random athletes. We can do that with brutal Chicago sports losses.
Easily.
Chicago sports loss.
Just by naming that random athlete might lead to a random loss.
Yeah.
You know what? What you don't want to lose is energy efficiency. How about that segue? Did you know that ComEd can help businesses save money by becoming more energy efficient, Ryan?
You know what, Luke, I actually had no idea ComEd did that.
Oh, yeah. The energy efficiency program can help find up to 35% in energy savings.
Up to 35%? What does a business have to do to get that?
All they have to do is sign up for a free facility assessment at comed.com/biz.
If it's that easy, why aren't more businesses doing it?
Boy, that's a great question. I can only guess that they are forgetting the website.
Yeah, maybe that's it. ComEd.com/biz. ComEd.com/biz. ComEd.com.
That's enough, Ryan. Terms and conditions apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customers' energy usage and rate. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law.
Prize Picks, man. If there's one thing I did on my 2 weeks away from here, was Prize Picks.
Bingo. No
Prize
vacation
Picks
from that.
was some of my entertainment, all right? Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, all right? You can win now up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. I can't emphasize enough how awesome that is, because how many times, let's just use your fantasy football team as an example, that you started a guy and he gets hurt in the first quarter, and then that's why you lose that week. At least with Prize Picks, their injury policy or insurance policy, you won't lose your lineup that you put out because a guy ends up leaving the game because of an injury or whatever. So it's a nice little insurance. It's a great, like Ryan just said, it's a great feature. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. It also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
And the Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. They send you notifications every day of the ones that they discount. I get them all the time, and I'm like, ooh, interesting. All right. Tonight, Joe Mixon, more than 21.5 rushing attempts, and Jalen Duran for the Pistons going up against the Bulls, more than 23.5 points and rebounds. 2 picks right there. Do it right on Prize Picks. Because the Bulls are going to continue to make us sad, and, well, there is football on, and there's a reason to watch it, okay? Download the app today. Use code CHGO to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CHGO to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Godfather says it all goes back to all the bad owners this city has. Starts and ends there.
Can I use that to, like, kind of say something about, like, a lot
no, you're not allowed.
No, you want to talk on a podcast?
Cody's had a lot of stuff
I have
he
a
wanted
list
to say over 2 weeks, but he said he wasn't going to say any of it. Some of it still leaked out on the internet because it's Cody.
Yeah.
But now he'd like to really release his greatest hits of things he wanted to say.
Okay. Let me just say, and it would have been a lot worse 2 weeks ago if I would have been here, like I said earlier, but it is absolutely infuriating to me that the Cubs are not even going to give Juan Soto a contract offer. Not even be in the conversation. At least be like the Red Sox, who are going to be in the conversation, and then he's not going to sign there. Okay? At least be like what you were with Ohtani last year. I think that's
pretend. At least pretend.
At least pretend. The fact that you're not even, when you're like, what, with all the money coming off the books, what, at like $170 million on your payroll right now with all the money off the books and where you're at, to not even send a offer? Jeff Passan's right in that rant that he went on last week on whatever podcast he was on, or maybe it was on, I don't know.
Yeah, he was on with Cespedes Barbecue.
Right. It's an absolute joke. And all it really does for me, as someone who has sat here and not necessarily blamed ownership for a lot of things, I said this before, if they don't do anything massive this offseason, after what's happened the last 2 years, it will show the true colors of the Cubs ownership. As much good as they have done, because you can certainly make the argument that the Ricketts family is the best ownership in this city, but the bar is really low if you just go back the last 8 years, all right? It's an absolute joke that they're not at least pretending to be into conversations for Juan Soto. We're talking about a top 5, top 3 perhaps player in all of baseball. We're sat here for 6-7 months, Luke, every day talking about how this organization doesn't have the guy, like a star, a game changer, an impact player. The closest thing to it is Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki. And then we're going to rely on a bunch of top 100 prospects to perhaps maybe turn into stars, right? Like, you have to do both. You need some of those guys to hit, but you also need that guy, the proven guy. And the fact that he's not even like 30 years old, he's 25, 26 years old. The fact that you're not even in on at least considering it, sending a low ball offer even. At least the White Sox did that with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. To not even send a low ball offer for Juan Soto is an absolute joke. It's a joke, and it's starting to show the true colors of Cubs ownership. As much as I've sat here and defended it a little bit and said that, obviously I was really down on Jed this year. Obviously I've questioned a lot of other decisions. But when it comes to a guy like Juan Soto, the fact that this ownership is not even pushing to go get a guy like that who can legitimately change the trajectory of your organization, and hell, even the perception around the league and the fans. Imagine if the Cubs had signed Juan Soto and all the people who have, like Godfather, for example, complained about how we've spent money, how we're never in on top free agents. If they actually did it, the perception, and then all the money you will make back. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'll sit here. I'm always gonna support the organization in terms of just from a fan perspective, but it's a joke that you're not doing it. And I'm never gonna sit here and tell no one to not go to Wrigley Field, because let's just use Luke as an example. He's a dad. At some point in his life, he's gonna want to take his son and his daughter to Wrigley Field one day, because there's nothing like going to Wrigley Field for the first time. And I can imagine as a parent, there's nothing like taking your kid to a baseball game for the first time.
If the tickets are free.
Yeah. Perhaps. The point is I'm never going to tell fans to not go to Wrigley Field or whatever, because it's an amazing venue. There's nothing like it. I love going to Wrigley Field every summer. I give all the support to all the season ticket holders who want to go to Wrigley, and if they have the money and they want to, and they have the money to be able to do that, that's on them, and good for them. I wish I had the money. I do not, and the Cubs keep calling me to try and be a season ticket holder, and I just simply can't afford it. Meanwhile, the Pirates are basically telling people, hey, we'll give you season tickets for 30 years if you have a Paul Skeens rookie card or whatever the heck it is.
And you get to sit in the suite with Libby.
The fan base deserves so much more, man. We deserve so much more. So the fact that you're not even considering Juan Soto is so infuriating to me. It's so infuriating to me, because the fan base deserves so much. You charge $16 beers. You charge all this money for this. You've made all these ballpark improvements. And granted, they needed it. They absolutely needed it. But the fact that you do all this, and now you're still at this point not doing whatever it takes to be among the top 7 teams in baseball even. It's a joke, man. So all I can say is that we all deserve better. And if you don't want to go, you want to boycott Wrigley or whatever, it won't change anything. I wouldn't blame you, though. That's the point. That's where I'm at. Like, unless this team starts winning, making the playoffs at the very least on a regular basis, I don't blame fans for canceling season tickets, for not going. I simply can't blame people for doing it. So there are a lot of things going on internally with the organization. I agree. But you could also be right there with the Dodgers, the Yankees, even the Padres. What other teams am I missing? The Mets even. The Mets are rumored to be in with like every single free agent this offseason, because their owner will spend wheelbarrows of cash. The Phillies. The fact that you're just not in that same league when you are who you are, just makes me want to punch one of these brick walls and break a hand. That's where I'm at. It's a joke. It's a joke, man.
Hand by
Cody's
hand.
anger management classes over the last 2 weeks did not pay off.
No, yeah. It's
I didn't cuss that entire rant. By the way.
That was better. That was better. That was improved. They couldn't even. They can't. They're not even willing to try to be creative. They're not willing to say, okay, we'll give him $100 million a year with tons of opt-outs and see if he'll take it for 2 years. Because you know what? Those fans that come out to Wrigley Field, the best ballpark, will then have the experience of a lifetime watching this guy play baseball, even if it's just for a year or two until a prospect takes that spot. He can opt out after 1 year. He can opt out after 2 years. Now we have a guy to put in. Why not throw a huge number at him for 1 year and say, dude, you can go through the same process next year, but you'll have $100 million in your back pocket from us. Whatever the number is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the Dodgers got creative with Ohtani. Find a way to get creative.
Defer the money.
so that he fits into some sort of plan. Even if it's just a small period of time. Because like you said, Wrigley Field is an unbelievable experience. But the thing that's better than an unbelievable experience at Wrigley Field is watching a superstar in your uniform at Wrigley Field. And having a chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, like we've kind of been saying it, like just I think resigned Cubs fans are like resigned to the fact that the Cubs aren't even going to go after Juan Soto
or Burns,
and not that like
or Fried, according to Jeff Passaneva.
Yeah, I guess that's what Jeff said, that Fried may end up.
There's 5 other teams, and the Cubs aren't a part of the even max Fried.
Yeah,
no, it's that is like super disappointing, obviously, because the Cubs do have the resources, they do have the market, they do have the healthy organization. I mean, I understand, like, if Juan Soto ultimately just, like, I don't want to play in Chicago, I want to play in L.A. or New York, or whatever it is, like, that's fine. And I think you felt that way as fans with, like, Shohei Ohtani last year. It's like, ultimately, he wasn't going to go to the Cubs. Like, he was going to stay in L.A., he was going to go to the Dodgers, but at least they were, the Cubs were involved in some capacity as far as, like, the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. The fact this year that it's mid-November, but we've been saying this for weeks now, like, the Cubs aren't going to go after Juan Soto. Yeah, that's got to be super disappointing if you're a Cubs fan, because they do, like I said, they have the resources, they have the market, they have the organization that he would fit in seamlessly, and like you build a team around that guy for the next decade plus. And I get like he's going to get really expensive. I get that, the end of a contract, especially if it's like 12, 13, 14 years, last few years probably aren't going to go very well, and you may have like just a bigger contract for a guy that may not be playing or meeting the level of whatever they'd be paying him. But it's also a decade from now. Like, look at Bryce Harper's contract in 2019. It looked really like huge. It was huge at the time, right? And you kind of thought about like what that's going to be AAV wise at the end of the year, at the end of the contract. But now I think this year he was making less than like Cody Bellinger did on AAV, if I'm not mistaken, or right around the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like 10 years from now, a contract that looks as big and an AAV that big, probably not going to be all that big. Or not going to feel as big as it would now looking at it, just because the way salaries and payrolls and all that stuff will keep increasing. So, I mean, would I have expected the Cubs to get Juan Soto anyway? Probably not. I think the New York teams are going to do a really good job of like recruiting him and trying to get him to stay around, or if he wants to go to LA, like, so be it. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the Cubs aren't even in the sweepstakes, like, yeah, that's got to be super disappointing if you're a fan.
The best players in baseball. It's what the rest of the podcast is about. Harper, Ohtani, Betts, Judge, Soto, twice. The Cubs didn't even blink at any of them. Those are the top 5 players in baseball, arguably the top 5 players in baseball, and you had at least a chance. They were available to you multiple times, some of them, Soto. You're not sniffing it. You're not even sniffing that arena, and that's what has Cody so frustrated. So,
and I'm not like Christian in the chat said, who said that we were out on Soto? Like Jeff Passan put it in. He said that there were 5 other teams not in on Max Fried. I mean, and the Cubs aren't one of them. And like the whole like they're going to be in the mid-tier pitching market. Like what? Like okay, you better make some real quote unquote creative trades. Yeah, better. And then we'll sit here in the chat all summer and judge it probably like we have with the Michael Busch trade. It's just, everything I said, it doesn't take away the fact that I don't think they're far away from being a legit playoff contender on a year-in, year-out basis. They are sticking to this quote-unquote plan. At the same time, though, you gotta get it going, man. There's just no more room for development. Miss me with that, man. I'm so tired of talking about development. That's why I don't care about people talking about, Caleb Williams' development. The Bears haven't made the playoffs since 2018. The Cubs haven't made the playoffs since 2018. Can some team in this dang city decide to say, hey, we're in Chicago. Let's be what this city deserves, a real winner.
Period.
Period.
That's what the kids say. Do they even have a top 5 player at a position? We'll find out and talk about it in a second.
Sorry for completely changing the show.
The Black Friday sales event is going on all month long at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. That means you can score huge Black Friday savings on your next vehicle the entire month of November. But don't let the deals pass you up. Stop in today to browse their huge inventory of new vehicles right now and shop savings like 0% financing available on all new 2024 Jeep models, or shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey with Ray's Price Promise. The numbers you're hearing on our podcast, you can expect to shop in-store and online. That's because Ray's Price Promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. Since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry into Ray CDJR today. Shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories, then drive home with more money in your pocket than you'd expect. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you got to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they're the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963. Hey guys, we are sponsored by Chicago Sports Network, the new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox games. Their new app is coming out. CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and is going to feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're Chicago-based, by the way, Chicago-built and Chicago to the core. They're bringing it to every corner of Chicago across 77 neighborhoods and beyond. At CHSN, Chicago comes first. Visit CHSN.com for more information on how you can watch the Bulls, the Blackhawks, and the White Sox games all season long. Like I said, new app coming out. They're going to stream direct to consumer. That's the new thing coming. So
there you go.
We appreciate them being one of our sponsors.
Absolutely.
All right. So what we were talking about.
Sorry for derailing the show again.
Not at all.
That was like a preamble.
Beautiful.
I mean, you had to let it out. I know you were trying to like.
Oh, there's even more. I got more to say about other things.
We said all those things 15 times the last 2 weeks, but that was all in one. That had the fury behind it. Okay. Yeah. So here's the deal. All I said is they don't have a superstar. Okay, we can all agree. Everybody gets an all-star, so that's a different thing. But there's a huge difference between having a player who's top 5 at your position in Major League Baseball. That's not necessarily even a superstar, but that's the next bar down. Are you top 5 at a position? Then after that, it's 5 to 10. There's a big gap between 5 to 10 and 1 to 5 usually. And then if you're below 10, well, then you know what you are? You're mid. You're 83 wins a lot of times. If you got guys that are all 10 and lower, you might not be the White Sox, which is great, but you're also not going to be the team that wins the World Series. You're not the Dodgers, because those are, whether you like it or not, those are the teams you're competing with. Even if they aren't in your division, that's who you're competing with, because that's who you have to beat to win the World Series, which is the only goal. Realistically should be. So I said, let's go through some of these positions and see where the Cubs rank. How would you rank, for instance, the first baseman in Major League Baseball? Where do they fit in? So I thought, you know what? Let's start with some of the guys that might be near the top for the Cubs. Let's start in left field. Ian Happ, 3 straight Gold Gloves. Had a really good season for the Cubs, right? On paper. I know there was a bad stretch, but it's hard not to argue that Happ was one of the 3 best position players on the Cubs this year. Yeah. Easily, right?
Yeah, easily.
Where does Ian Happ rank in left field? So Ryan put in the digits into the F4 machine and the fan graphs and all the stuff came down. Because my Stucky stats tell me it's still not top 5. Because that's just the eyeballs. Yeah. and I don't know what Delmetrics say, but like good vibes when you're there on a Friday 120 club, but top 5 in baseball in left field, I'm not so sure. So I'm just going by F-WAR. Jarren Duran, 6.7. Yordan Alvarez, 5.3. Profar this season, 4.3. Stephen Kwan, 4.1. Riley Green, 4.0. Colton Cowser, 4.0. Jackson Churio, 3.9. We've already got 7 guys that had a better F-WAR, and then comes Ian Happ at 3.6, which, again, if you have a bunch of guys at 3.6, it's nice, but you got to pair that with a guy who's at like 7 or Kris Bryant's MVP season to actually have something realistically that's going to compete for a championship. My problem with this is not only is one of our best players not a top 5 F-WAR guy to his position. It's not his fault. He is who he is. He had a nice season again. He's very dependable. But I can go below Ian Happ. Happ is number 8 if you're just going by F-WAR. I know a lot of people like WRC Plus and all the other things. He's got the gold gloves. Start going down to the names below it. And you look at, are there some that you still, because that's just one season. Are there guys above and below Happ, right, from last year that you would rather have in left field? I know he has no trade clause. I'm just saying, are there guys that had a bad season, but you would say, I would still take that guy in left field over Ian Happ? Well, Dalton Varsho's at 3.3. Would you rather have Dalton Varsho in left or Ian Happ in left?
Ian Happ.
You take Happ?
I think Ian Happ.
I'd take Ian Happ.
Ian Happ.
What about Yelich at 3.0?
Well, Yelich would have finished higher, but he got hurt.
Right.
He was having his best season.
That's what I'm saying. So, like,
year.
when you just within your division, look at Yelich. Would you rather have Yelich in left than Happ?
Yeah, as much as I enjoy chirping him in left field whenever the Brewers come to town.
Ha.
Sure, yeah. Yelich has won MVPs, you know. But you can't deny the fact that there was a multi-year stretch there where he didn't live up to his standard that he set for himself. This year before the back injury, sure, he was on path to be, you know, he could have easily been in the top 5 by the end of the year. I mean, he missed he was out the last 2.5, 3 months of the season, and he was still a 3-WAR.
He had a 3-WAR. Yeah, missed half.
We don't really know what's going to happen with his back.
Yeah.
Really don't.
Teoscar Hernandez at 3.5, 3.5 as well. Like, he was a big part of the Dodgers postseason run.
Yes.
And
33 home runs.
And he hit a ton of home runs. I think there's, when you look, like, I understand why we're using Fangraphs because it just describes it's the easiest way to describe a player's value, no doubt. But a lot of these guys, like Teoscar Hernandez, is like he's got the slug. He's there for homers. Happ might outshine him in other, like, maybe he outshines him in on base.
He might be more well-rounded.
Oh, well-rounded. Yeah, he might be a better left fielder as well. You know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I gave, when we did the grades, I gave Ian Happ an A because he legitimately showed up and did everything he was paid to do. And he's a top, in terms of top 10, you want to use top 10, he is a top 10 paid outfielder. I think right at 10.
Outfielder or left fielder?
I think it's just among major league outfielders, he's top 10 in being paid, at least according to Spotrac.
You're saying like the highest salary?
Yeah, in terms of salaries, yeah.
Yeah, and
I believe you can fact check me, but I'm pretty sure when I looked that up, he was.
I'm just talking like, how close are you to being star? Right? How close can you get to being to the sun right now? And I would say this is not an exercise in bagging on Ian Happ. I'm doing Happ first because I say he's one of their best all-around players. I don't think there's any question about it. But there are still guys below that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely make the argument that he's a top 10 player and not feel like you're just trying to shove him in there. Like
left field.
In left field, yeah.
But you could
top 10 player in left field.
But I think it's more difficult to move Happ into the top 5 in left field than it is to move him into 10 to 15.
Probably.
Sure.
I see what you're saying.
And so he's closer to the mid-level than he is to the superstar level. And again, it's not his fault. What he needs to have is superstars around him. He's not a superstar.
I would say
that's okay.
I think what we've seen the last 3 years from Ian Happ is what he is. He is in the prime of his career, which is a really good complementary player who can go on stretches and and be more than just a complimentary player for sure, right? I think that he is established that the last 3 years.
Yeah,
since 2022.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
And we say, like, he's one of those guys he's a good player you like to have on your team, but he's not a star.
No.
He's not a superstar, obviously. And so that's what – I mean, Jeff Passan said it, and we put the response video. Thank you all for making that video for us.
Yeah, on a Saturday. No big
Wonderful.
It's like Luke keeps saying, like, every show, like, the Cubs have no stars. They don't have superstars. But – and that's the problem is, like, Ian Happ's not a superstar. He's a good player, like we're saying, that you'd love to have on your team. Like he is a player. He could be on a championship, starting in left field on a championship caliber ball club. Like, he's a good player, but if you're asking him to be one of your best players, like, you're one of your top 2, maybe 3 players on your team, and I just don't think he's necessarily that. I think he could be a really good player on a better lineup.
On the Dodgers, he's batting like 8th or 9th, or
which is okay.
Like platooning.
Right. That's what we say about, like,
field.
Dansby Swanson, too. Like, he might not even be arguably our best player is potentially a platoon player. Do I think he's better than Teoscar Hernandez? I'd actually rather have him than Teoscar Hernandez, although the Cubs need the power.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, Brandon Nimmo's way down the list. Brandon Nimmo's a pretty good player. Now, has he passed guys like Brian Reynolds? Probably.
Brian Reynolds' defense isn't nearly as good, I think.
For me, he's past somebody like that. But there's young players in left field where you look at him and say, is he better than Conforto? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. But is he better than Benintendi? Yes. Now, a name that I came up with, too, that I thought, well, I don't even know what his stats were last year. Kelenic is a young player that I look at and say, now, wait a minute, could that be an upgrade in 2 years? Maybe. He hits the ball pretty hard. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Ian Happ. But, again, there's a lot of players in the 10 to 20 range that aren't that far off from being in there. And that it still feels closer to mid than it does to a superstar.
To go the opposite direction, would you rather have Jurickson Profar after one really good season than Ian Happ, who's done it for 3 years of consistency?
Yeah. I think you'd rather have 2024 Profar because of how good a year he had.
But going into next year, which guy would you rather have on your team?
I think Happ probably is the one that.
Just because you don't know what he'll do next year.
Like you said, he's been pretty consistently good the last few years. Profar had a great year, but he hasn't.
He's a late bloomer. He's like in his 30s.
Right, Rooker is left field, right?
Who?
Rooker, the guy from the A's.
Rooker, yeah. He's a guy. I
didn't even mention him. I missed him on the list of. Well, his F-WAR's got to be up there for last year.
Yeah. I think he definitely has the slug factor that the Cubs could use.
Right. Would you rather have Rooker in left next year or Happ on this currently constructed team?
Just because of what we know that the Cubs are missing.
Yes.
I think you have to be able to sacrifice some of the things that Ian Happ brings you for a guy that can potentially be a difference maker. The only thing that scares me about Rooker is that, like, he's also, like, around the same age as Ian Happ too. Mm-hmm. And, like, this past season was his best season
by far.
And it's like, will he continue to be that guy moving forward? When, again, Ian Happ has done it for 3 years, been a consistently really good, valuable player for you. So I don't want to say that it's just like Jurickson Profar, but it is kind of similar in a way, I think. And I don't have Rooker's numbers up. Maybe it's been more than just 1 year, but I don't remember people really talking about Rooker until this past season.
Yeah, Brian Rooker only actually played 100 games in the field this year, or 100 innings in the field this year.
Really?
Yeah, 9 games, 72 and a third innings in left field, 5 games, 30 innings in right field. I guess he DH'd a lot. I mean, I thought he played more field, but yeah, I mean, he was a 5-WAR player this year. Another guy had a great year, 39 home runs, 112 RBIs. The year before that, he was just over about 2 WAR. And before that, it's like he was.
So you're sacrificing some defense, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
In left field.
Yeah, you have a Gold Glover. Yes, you're sacrificing defense.
Even though no one takes left field seriously as far as a Gold Glove. But, yeah, I mean, we'd be saying that with a lot of different things with any other player. That's why I don't really take Ian Happ for granted. I think he brings a little bit of everything that you need on a team.
No. I don't either. It's just an exercise in how close are they to having a top 5 player at that position, because that's You have to have multiple players like that in order to be a serious playoff contender. Now, Robert Blanco says he'd be a starter on every team. No, that's what I'm saying. There's at least 6 teams or 7 teams that would say, nah, even with last year's really good season for Ian Happ, I would take the guy we have in left field. And he's our best player, most likely. Okay, so what about Seiya? Where does Seiya rank? Again, if you're just going by F-WAR, well, Juan Soto's at 8.1. Don't get Cody started. He's not better than Soto. He's not better than Betts. Kyle Tucker at 4.2 would be if I could make that switch out right now for Tucker for Soto, you do it every day. 365. Corbin Carroll. Jackson Churio also plays some right field, so that then you have Seiya comes in at number 6. But Hernandez is in there. Santander, who's a free agent, is available. At number 8, you've got Butler, Fernando Tatis. You've got
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Like, realistically, is Seiya going to be playing a lot of right field next year?
No.
Like maybe against left-handed pitchers on the
mound. Will that drop him lower?
Sure.
Will that drop him lower? Because now he's in a group with Ohtani and other great hitters.
So, I think we should be doing Bellinger instead of Seiya. And we may do
Bellinger tomorrow, and we may do.
But the way their roster is constructed here on November 18th,
it's probably Bellinger.
I see Bellinger playing right field every day, Seiya DHing, and on days where that's different is when the Cubs are facing a lefty, they bench Bush, put Bellinger at first base, and play Seiya in right.
What was Bellinger's F-WAR this year?
Like 2.2.
Bellinger had.
So we know
2.2.
So we know he'd be even lower than Seiya.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't.
Santander is 8th at 3.3.
Well, Bellinger kind of.
Not that I don't like him better in right field.
We all know that Bellinger would play right field over Seiya because of defense.
Yes.
Defense only.
Right. I know right? James Colstock in the chat is every time we use WAR, like hates on it. I don't know why he hates WAR so much. But I will say, like, obviously, like go back to the Christian Yelich thing. Like, he was only a 3-WAR player, finished below Happ, but he only played half the season. Right? He could have been like a 5-6 WAR player had he played the whole year.
He was on track to be like a 5 or 6
so,
WAR player.
Like, obviously, WAR is not the be-all, end-all, but you're talking about being healthy, like, right? Like, Christian Yelich is someone we know has had health issues the last few years. Do you want a guy who Happ's basically played every game in the last 3 years. Do you want?
He's been durable.
Yeah, would you rather have that? So, obviously, a lot more than WAR goes into it. This is just a good way to just obviously measure a player's value in comparison to the rest of the league. But I'm kind of with Cody in that you're putting, I'll even say, like, if you put up, say, against just right fielders, like, then you're limiting the pool of guys you'd probably measure up with because he's going to DH most likely next year. Like, that pool gets even bigger. That's when you start putting Shohei Ohtani in there, right? Yeah. Or Brent Rooker, like I just said, DH'd a lot last year. So you're widening the pool of guys that you'd be measuring up, say, with if you consider him the DH instead of the right fielder, and it would be very hard for him to get into that mix of even top 5 DHs in the league.
Sure, it's like taking Wilson Contreras' numbers and saying, look how awesome he is offensively, but if you turn him into a DH, those numbers aren't nearly as impressive as they are as a catcher.
Sure.
Right? James says, we all have eyes. Who needs that's 100% what I'm saying. I'm just giving you another way. I'm giving you the nerd way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. I've told you what Stuckey stats tell me. They don't have a top 5 player at any position. And that's just these 2 old eyeballs watching the television with Cody and Ryan and looking at all these games. They don't have a top 5 player at any position.
Well, to play devil's advocate.
F-WAR also tells me the same thing.
To play devil's advocate with the argument of WAR, I guess, it's like, well, look at PCA. He didn't hit for 2 months, and he still finished with nearly a 3 WAR because his defense was that elite, his base running was that elite, and then he did eventually hit, which helped it along the way. I do think that there is some stock in it. I would agree that you don't use it for every little thing.
Yeah, we're not like,
but there is a value in that stat.
No, I value Stuckey stats over F-WAR.
Yeah,
always.
Stats,
I don't even care about F-WAR. I'm just trying to give it to the people. Other people that
I
do
value
care
my
about
eyes over things too, because there have been times where I've seen certain stats and I'm like, for guys, and I'm like, really? My eyes aren't telling me that he's that guy.
Right.
But listen, that could be about a player that I'm not watching every single day too. So it's I just think that's a good stat that helps you define a player's value. That's all. That's all it is, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it does come down to what you're seeing with your eyes, I think, too.
James says you guys use it too much. Way too much. No, I don't use it at all. That's what I'm saying. The number one evaluation I have are these two 52-year-old eyes, and they tell me there's no top 5 player.
He just hates it when we bring it up.
So I know I'm trying to reaffirm that my eyes are still good by telling you what the nerds say. Now 2 people are telling you. It's not just me, it's me and the nerds.
Apparently I use it too much. He said me.
I included you in the nerd thing. No offense.
Well, he is the objective one, and listen, stats
have a place, but stats can tell you what you want them to tell you.
I have eyes. I see players.
Sure.
Do they have a top 5 player at a position that you can think of?
I don't think. I mean,
no.
You could have guys like Seiya may have an argument, right? Cody Bellinger's a guy with a ceiling that he could have an argument to be in there.
You got MVP votes just 2 years ago,
right?
Like Happ. I mean, maybe he can move up there with another really good year. I don't know. Like, I think there are definitely guys that have arguments to be in the top 10, which is still good. Do they have anyone that's for sure a top 5 player at their position? I don't. Off the top of my head, I don't think so. We'd have to look into it. But
as an overall player, you want to talk about just defense? I think Dansby Swanson's a top 5 shortstop in baseball.
Right.
Yeah.
That's if you're trying to find right. You're trying to find something they're elite at, then you have to identify a single skill. But if you're talking about overall player, which other than your eyes, F4 and WAR are the best, probably the best thing. Unless you're talking about just a hitter, then it's WRC plus might be more valuable than F4. It's one of the better things we have. It's better than just saying who hit more home runs or who has a better average. We'll look at PCA and see where and obviously it's not saying PCA is a bad player. Where are there center fielders? Does he fit into the top 5 yet? Maybe he will someday, and that potentially could be their star player. Then you have to go from being a top 5 player to being a superstar player. If you're not 1 or 2 at your position, you're not a superstar. Most likely, right? If you're not top 3 at your position in baseball, how could somebody call you a superstar?
Sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to Seiya, I believe he was a top 15 player or top 15 OPS among all outfielders. So that's not just right field. That's all outfielders, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. You can fact check.
Wasn't he just top 20 in baseball in terms of WRC or
perhaps,
OPS too, I guess?
I thought it was among outfielders. Maybe it's among all baseball, just as hitters. So I think the thing with Seiya that holds him back from being considered a star or a superstar player is the fact that the home run power hasn't been there. He's a really good hitter. He had an 850 OPS this year, but he hasn't produced enough in the role that the Cubs have him in to be considered a star player or a superstar player. Again, it's like we're talking about Ian Happ again, except with Seiya Suzuki. He is a really good hitter that, admittedly, me, you, and Ryan probably have sat here and have had too high of expectations the last 2 years based off of what he did in Japan. But we have to acknowledge at the same time that Japan is different than Major League Baseball. He's been really good, but has he lived up or has he played to a star-level player? No. But is he even paid to be a star-level player? I don't think so. No. So I think he's lived up to the contract.
$18.5 million.
And the only thing that he's been a disappointment in to me is 18? The defense.
It's not bagging on either guy. They're 2 of their best players.
Yeah.
The point of the conversation is how close are they with guys currently on their roster to having somebody that might be top 5 at their position. And you need multiple guys that are top 5 at their position.
Yeah.
That's why the Cubs are winning 83 games. That's why Jed's saying we need guys to exceed projections is a little bit ludicrous.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you've seen enough sample size to say they're not. Did you see, by the way, on this day in Cubs history, 9 years ago, Kris Bryant was named Rookie of the Year.
Nice.
8 years ago today, Kris Bryant was named the MVP. This year, well, we know it didn't go well for KB. He's making a lot of money, and his Lamborghini got stolen. Our friends at DNVR said, he had it ready to be moved to Vegas, right? His I believe it's this yellow Lamborghini, was ready to go to Vegas. He had it under a cover, and they found some like Lamborghini theft ring, and his got ripped off.
What was it like? It never showed up to like his
never
place
showed
in
up.
Vegas
Never
or
showed up to Vegas. Was just gone, and then they found it as part of this theft ring. It's like a $300,000 car. I know he's got the money for it, but I would notice if my $300,000 yellow sports car was missing too.
My biggest takeaway from that is I did not expect Kris Bryant to be a Lamborghini guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting.
I think he's more of like a Range Rover guy because he's like a dad now with two kids.
I know he's very
like I'd expect the van or the SUV.
There's no car seat in the Lamborghini. That's definitely true. Yeah. There is no car seat in that one. You're right. He's probably got a Range Rover,
something like that, or Mercedes. Something
one of the big.
Yeah,
I
did not expect him to be a Lamborghini guy.
I saw an Escalade this weekend that was so long I thought it was a bus. It was the longest Escalade I've ever seen. By the way, if you do have kids, here's my tip of the day. I found something that Cody spent 2 weeks having fun. My Saturday uncovered one of the best places to take kids. Why? First of all, not a sponsor, but should be soon. Apt.
ABT Apt.
ABT Apt. You ever been to that, the appliance store in Glenview?
Especially on a weekend.
Here we go. First of all, the negative side, yes, I had to spend $1,000 for my new washing machine. Killer, right? Just kills you, especially since I spent $365 trying to repair the old one. So now I'm almost down $1,500 on a stinking wash machine. I got a great deal from my guy Steve Shapiro. Great deal on this wash machine. It's gonna last. It's gonna stand the test of time. But here's the thing about Apt. It's got everything. My 3-year-old walks in there and is just like, it's TVs everywhere. It's like overall. He's like, he didn't even know what to do. He walked in there and our little girl, same thing. I'm holding her. She's just staring at like, there's giant salamanders on the wall. And then you take her into the theater, and the music, they're watching Ford versus Ferrari.
Ferrari.
Yeah.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Is that what I said?
You said Ferrari.
Whatever.
Like Guy
Fieri.
Guy Fieri. He was on another TV. But that's not why. Then they have stuff for kids. All of a sudden, my son goes, what is that smell?
Yes, you're finally got to it.
3 years old, this kid goes, what is that smell? I go, that is 100% chocolate chip cookies somewhere.
Yes, because they sell ovens there, and they test out. They say, hey, look at
on
what
the
these
weekends
ovens can do.
at Apt. This is a little tip. Some people go to Costco and look for the samples. Head yourself over to Apt on a Saturday or a Sunday. Warm chocolate chip cookies out of the oven all day long.
Yeah.
Take as many as you want.
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw old people. I took a picture.
They have one of those in the city?
No, there's only the one.
There's only the one. I saw these two old people, and when I say old, way older than me. They had their feet up on a couch in a room like this with their cell phone, and they were just slugging warm chocolate chip cookies.
Brought their own glass of milk.
They were hanging out there for 2 hours eating chocolate chip cookies
just chilling
on a couch. It was unbelievable. And they also had a woman with a panini machine making unbelievable grilled cheese sandwiches.
All right. Thanks for that tip.
That's what I do.
2-time dad of the year.
That's going to do it for the TV side today. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. You can also continue always at allchgo.com. But we want to remind you that this is the holiday season. And this is the time where you can give the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. You can give it in 2024, but it's going to give into 2025, and then you gift it again in 25, and it gives in 26. We're talking about the Die Hard program. The Die Hard program that gets you access to Ryan's content. The Die Hard program that gets you his mail letter every Friday. The Die Hard program that gets you 20% off all of our dope merch. Or the Bears tailgate that comes up again this Sunday.
Yeah.
Or takeovers sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And most importantly, what? The only thing better than a warm chocolate chip cookie?
Die Hard card.
A warm chocolate chip cookie with a Die Hard card in your other hand.
I ventured around the city with my Die Hard card and just got all kinds of things for free for 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Yep.
And if you want to throw that down at Apt, I bet you get 2 free warm chocolate chip cookies at a time.
Yeah,
really.
2 at a time.
Someone should get Roki Sasaki a Die Hard card. Maybe that'll get him.
Well, I would at least. But the Cubs probably aren't going to try to get him either. Who knows?
Trying to manifest.
Soto, Juan Soto. You don't think we have a shot if we send him a diehard card? He's probably like, what is this?
We'll sit here for another 15 minutes if you get me on CHGO instead.
Godfather says you're joking. No, I'm not. And we'll be back tomorrow at 11:30. Thanks for watching the CHGO Cubs podcast, and fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.